Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to start by doing something a little weird with me for a second. Just imagine waking up tomorrow morning and finding out your job, your relationships, the technology you use every day, and even your own body have completely changed. I mean, everything is different. Your immediate reaction is probably a massive spike in anxiety, right? Naturally, because we spend our entire lives trying to nail things down. We're always trying to make things predictable, safe, and stable. But here's a real pattern interrupt for you. What if the daily anxiety of modern life isn't actually caused by the fact that life changes? We love to blame the shifting economy, or our aging bodies, or that ending relationship. We point the finger at the change itself. But what if we're looking at the absolute wrong culprit here? Okay, here's the punchline. What if the real problem is expecting permanence? It turns out our suffering doesn't necessarily come from the reality of change. It actually comes from our impossible demand for things to just stay still. We desperately want life to be this nice, still photograph that we can frame and hang up on the wall. But reality? Reality is a moving movie. It literally never pauses.
So, let's dive into part 1, the illusion of permanence, or the smartphone paradox.
How quickly do our expectations of permanence clash with actual reality? Well, think about the life cycle of getting a new smartphone. Day 1, it's brand new, it's shiny, and you protect it like it's a literal newborn baby. But by day 7, it gets its first tiny scratch, and you are just filled with anxiety. The perfect phone is ruined. Then, by month 6, it gets a second scratch. You're annoyed, sure, but definitely less so. And by year 1, you completely stop caring. Now, the phone itself didn't suddenly become drastically worse or lose its function. What actually happened is that your relationship with change simply evolved. The suffering wasn't caused by the scratch on the screen. It was caused by your expectation that the phone was going to stay pristine forever.
Moving right along to section 2, the philosopher of flow, the ancient disruptor. To figure out how to actually manage these expectations, we're going to go way back to an ancient disruptor who saw the true nature of reality over 2.5 millennia ago. The year was roughly 535 BCE. Over in the ancient Greek city of Ephesus, a guy named Heraclitus was born into a very wealthy, aristocratic family. He had a clear, easy path to immense political power. But instead of taking it, he just walked away. He decided he preferred truth over comfort and solitude over popularity. People actually gave him the nickname the Obscure because his writings were, well, notoriously difficult to read. But he didn't do this just to confuse people. He did it because he firmly believed that truth isn't something you can just passively memorize. It's like a giant puzzle. You have to discover it and solve it for yourself if you want it to stick forever.
And that leads us right to his absolute mic drop of a quote. You cannot step into the same river twice. Let's just slow down and actually absorb that for a second. I know it sounds super poetic, but it is deeply, profoundly true. If you stand beside a river, step in, and then literally 1 second later step in again, new water has flowed past. The river looks exactly the same to your eyes, but it fundamentally isn't. And Heraclitus was pointing out that you are that river. Your cells are constantly renewing. Your memories shift, your habits evolve. You are flowing, exactly like the water.
Which brings us to section 3, why we fear change and the psychology of resistance.
So if constant flow is the fundamental truth of reality, why on earth do we fight it so hard? Well, the crucial point here is uncertainty. Our brains are biologically hardwired by evolution to seek certainty. Why? Because back in the day, predictability literally meant survival. An unknown, unfamiliar forest probably contained predators, so the brain developed this brilliant alarm system where anything unfamiliar feels incredibly dangerous. Today, that means changing careers, moving to a new city, or going through a breakup triggers the exact same alarm bells in your brain as a tiger hiding in the bushes. We are constantly confusing modern uncertainty with ancient, life-threatening danger. Just look at the stark contrast between human resistance and nature's acceptance. As humans, we try to freeze life. We complain that winter's too cold and we wish it were summer already. We push back, we resist. Nature, on the other hand, never resists. Trees don't complain about losing their leaves in the autumn. They just adapt. Oceans don't try to argue with the pull of the tide, they simply flow. Reality does not negotiate. And yet we're the only creatures on Earth constantly trying to negotiate with it. And this brilliantly illustrates why Heraclitus chose fire as his ultimate symbol. While other philosophers were busy looking at static, solid things like Earth, Heraclitus looked at a flame. If you watch a fire carefully, you'll see it is never still. It's constantly changing shape, it's consuming fuel, it's letting off smoke. And yet through all of that, it remains continuously, undeniably fire. Your identity is exactly like this flame. You are constantly changing and evolving, but you still maintain a continuous core self. Let's jump into Section 4, Science Meets Ancient Wisdom, and the Universe in Motion.
Okay, this is the part that is absolutely mind-blowing to me. The modern world completely validates this 2,500-year-old insight. Modern astrophysics and neuroscience literally back up Heraclitus. Just think about the hard facts. Right now, your body is in a constant state of cellular regeneration. Your brain is literally rewiring itself as you listen to this explainer through a process called neuroplasticity. Look out into the cosmos. Stars are being born and stars are exploding. Look down at the microscopic level. Atoms are constantly vibrating. Absolutely nothing is truly static. Even mountains are slowly moving. And the crazy thing is, Heraclitus saw this truth through pure observation. No microscopes, no satellites, just paying attention.
He also realized that this whole state of flow relies entirely on opposites. Notice how everything depends on contrast. Illness is what creates our appreciation for health, right? Work is what actually gives meaning and sweetness to taking a rest. Sadness is the very thing that carves out the space for us to experience joy. Without this contrast, our entire experience of life would just become invisible. Think of it like a piece of music. If every single note were exactly the same, there wouldn't be a melody. Difficulties, changes, opposites, these are what actually create the music of life.
All right, let's make this actionable in Section 5, the practical toolkit. We're going to break down the FLOW framework.
So, how do we actually use this ancient wisdom in our crazy, hyper-fast modern lives? Well, it builds into a really practical 4-step system inspired by Heraclitus to help us transform all that fear into adaptability. It's called the FLOW framework. Face reality, let go, observe the flow, and work with change. Step 1 is F for face reality. When a sudden change hits us, let's say a sudden job loss, our first reaction is usually to ask, why is this happening to me? We take it so personally. But to face reality means stopping that unhelpful question and instead asking, what is reality asking me to become right now? It means accepting the new conditions neutrally. You treat it as raw data, rather than viewing it as some massive personal tragedy. You literally have to accept the facts on the ground before you let your emotions take the wheel. Step 2 is L for let go. Honestly, so much of our suffering comes from just desperately holding on to expired versions of our lives. We cling to old routines, old expectations, old identities. I mean, think about how totally absurd it would be to try and force yourself to wear the clothes you wore when you were a kid. It's ridiculous, right? But emotionally speaking, when we cling to the past, that is exactly what we are doing. Growth always requires release. Step 3 is O for observe the flow. This is all about becoming a scientist of your own mind. When you encounter a big change, just notice your thoughts, notice your emotions, notice your default habits. But, and this is key, do not immediately react to them. Observation techniques like meditation are fantastic for this. You just watch your thoughts come and go, passing by like clouds in the sky or water flowing down a river, without letting them sweep you away. And the final step is W for work with change. Instead of asking how you can avoid change, ask how you can use it. If a relationship ends, use it to grow emotionally. If a business fails, collect the data and learn from it. You have to view it neutrally. Think of an expert surfer. A beginner fights the ocean's waves and they just get crushed. But an expert, they know they can't stop the ocean, so they use the waves to ride forward. Every single ending contains the raw material for your next beginning.
Which brings us to a beautiful realization about who you actually are. Identity is a process. It is absolutely not a finished product. It's actually kind of dangerous to say, well, this is just who I am. Because you are not your past and you are not your ingrained habits. Remember that neuroplasticity we talked about earlier? Your future self is quite literally being built today, inside your brain.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a visual anchor to hold on to. Imagine you are holding a handful of dry sand right now. If you squeeze your fist tightly, trying to control it and hold on to every grain, the sand just quickly slips through your fingers, and your anxiety grows. But if you simply open your hand and hold it flat, the sand rests peacefully. Trying to control the unstoppable flow of reality only creates suffering. Opening your hand and choosing to flow with reality brings freedom.
Heraclitus wasn't telling us to just sit back and be passive. He was telling us to dance with reality rather than fighting it. Because that river, it's not going to stop for anyone. So I leave you with this final provocative thought. The question is not whether life will change. The question is, will you flow with it?